I always thought the coldest thing about November in Chicago was the wind, sharp, uninvited, and always slipping through the seams. That was until I picked up my phone and saw my father's name blinking on the screen. I was sitting at the window, hands wrapped around a chipped ceramic mug, watching the breath of early winter smear frost against the glass. My apartment was quiet, not the lonely kind of quiet, but the kind you fight to earn. I liked it that way. "Ethan, you don't need to come home for Thanksgiving this year." He said it with the tone of someone mentioning he forgot to pick up the mail. I waited, but there was no apology following the sentence, no excuse wrapped in warmth. Just think it's better this way. Kyle's been a little edgy lately. Edgy. As if my existence was a hazard to my brother's comfort. As if I hadn't spent the past 2 winters keeping that house warm, while Kyle flamed through failed ventures and designer brunches. I stared at the floor, listening to the hum of my old heater, the one I bought with my first overtime check. His voice on speaker sounded distant, like static, clinging to a memory that had overstayed its welcome. "Dad," I said, slow and flat, "I've sent you over $8,000 in the last 18 months. Furnace repairs, oil deliveries, even that emergency tank last January. Remember that?" He didn't respond. I heard him breathe, that long, heavy sigh he used whenever he wanted me to drop something. I didn't. I couldn't. "You want peace? Then let me give it to you." I hung up, not in anger, in decision. Outside, snow began to fall, soft, silent, and relentless, like truth, like boundaries. After the call, I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just sat still. The kind of stillness you only earn after years of being quietly erased. That night, I opened the file on my laptop. Elm Street, Utilities. That's what I named it. Every dollar I had funneled into that house, each transaction time-stamped like a breadcrumb trail of misplaced loyalty. January, $400. Emergency heating oil, March, $725. Furnace inspection and parts, September, $600. Fall delivery. After Kyle's podcast studio accidentally overran the budget. Funny how they always remembered I had a steady job, but never that I had bills of my own. I scrolled further, eyes moving mechanically past numbers and notes. The last entry was 10 months ago, $400, sent ahead of a predicted cold front, so they wouldn't have to worry. I had written in the note field, but worry they did, just never about me. Kyle had burned through nearly $16,000 of their retirement money. First, it was a sustainable candle brand, then a series of podcast microphones and ring lights. He bought bulk wax from Texas, slapped hand-drawn labels on them, and priced them like designer perfume. The garage still smelled like regret. Meanwhile, my parents, instead of cutting him off, kept whispering, "He's just figuring it out. He's still young." I was only 3 years older, but I'd been old since I was 22. Old enough to skip rent hikes by living above a deli. Old enough to take on night shifts so I could send money without being asked. Old enough to be forgotten the moment Kyle got anxious. That night, I hovered over the cancel auto pay button. My cursor blinked. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of my own heater. Loyal, old, and mine. I clicked. A message flashed. Heating oil delivery cancellation confirmed. Effective November 20. I closed the laptop, and then I stood up. Not because I needed to move, but because I finally felt like I had the right to. There's a peculiar kind of silence that settles over a home once warmth is removed. It isn't immediate, no. It creeps in, inch by inch, like frost crawling up a window pane. At first, they probably didn't notice. Maybe the vents still sighed with the ghost of warmth left behind. But eventually, even ghosts fade. The official cutoff came on November 20. I was at the corner cafe, a place that smelled like roasted hazelnuts and holiday playlists played just a touch too early. I watched the email come through on my phone. Your heating service to 344 Elm Street has been discontinued. I didn't smile. I didn't even breathe differently. I just locked the screen and kept stirring cinnamon into my coffee. Outside, the first heavy snowfall of the season was blanketing the street in quiet white resolve. The next day, I got a message from my mother. Just one line, Ethan. The heat's acting up again. Can you check it? No greeting, no warmth, just expectation, same as always. I didn't reply. That evening, Kyle followed up. So childish. I stared at the message for a while. I wondered if he typed it from beneath one of the throw blankets he used as Instagram props, the ones he claimed were artisan woven. Maybe he was still filming his latest podcast about mindfulness. Under pressure, I turned my phone on silent. By the fourth day, the silence had a sound of its own, desperate fingers typing, voicemails collecting in batches. Ethan, I don't know what's going on. Dad's voice snapped through the recording, cracked like thin ice. It's 58 degrees in here. Kyle's been coughing. If you know something, call me. I didn't listen to the whole voicemail. I already knew how it ended. Blame, wrapped in denial. Instead, I put on my coat and walked to the bookstore on Roosevelt. I bought a novel about people who disappeared from their own families. Not out of rebellion, but out of quiet exhaustion. I sat in the cafe next door for 3 hours, watching snowflakes blur the city into soft static. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a missing son. I felt like a man who finally knew where he stood. On November 10th, an unknown number lit up my phone. It was the oil company. Hi, is this Mr. Ethan Caldwell? Just following up on the account for Elm Street. The homeowners haven't renewed, and since the contract was under your name. No, I interrupted. The contract was canceled. I'm no longer responsible for that house. A pause. Understood. Just to confirm, you're not planning to continue service? I glanced outside at the rooftops, sugar-coated in white. My own apartment was warm. The small space heater I bought 2 winters ago buzzed beside my armchair. That's correct, I said. Thank you. Click. By November 14th, the messages arrived in flurries, bitter, pleading, panicked. Mom, Ethan, it's only 50 degrees. Your dad refuses to wear a coat inside. Kyle's got a fever. Can we please talk? Dad, this isn't about money anymore. This is about family. Kyle, fine. Pretend you were never part of this family. Typical. Typical. That word sank in heavier than the snow outside. As if I was the one who turned my back. As if I hadn't carried their burdens like invisible luggage through every sleepless shift and overdue payment. I didn't respond. I didn't delete the messages either. I archived them. Sometimes you don't need to throw things away to let them go. You just file them where they can't reach you anymore. On November 17th, a snowstorm hit. The kind they put in the headlines. Ice-laced wind. Freezing rain that turned sidewalks to skating rinks. Power flickered in parts of the city. I was lucky. My building stayed warm, old as it was. I sat near the window, a wool blanket over my shoulders, hot soup bubbling on the stove. I imagined the old house on Elm Street, thin windows, drafty walls, the cold sinking in like ink on paper. I pictured my father layering 2 coats, my mother wrapping her fingers around a lukewarm mug, Kyle posting something cryptic on his social media, something about weathering emotional frost. They always were good at making metaphors when it suited them, but I wasn't the villain in this narrative anymore. I was just absent. On the 19th, my phone rang 12 times, all from Dad. The last voicemail was short, clipped. Call me back. This isn't a joke. I chuckled. To them, maybe it wasn't. To me, it wasn't a joke either. It was reality. For years, I kept the storm out, held the roof with one hand and paid the bills with the other. But when they shut the door in my face for the sake of Kyle's peace, they forgot who was keeping the cold outside. So I let go. That night, Kyle posted a photo on Instagram, his socked feet propped up near a space heater. The caption? Cold enough to feel like we live in a freezer. I scrolled past, didn't double tap, didn't feel anything at all. The irony, he was right. On November 20, honest, 2 days before Thanksgiving, I was chopping onions when a message from my father came in. Ethan, if you still consider yourself part of this family, now's the time to prove it. I paused. The onions didn't sting nearly as much as those words. I stared out the window. The world beyond the glass was soft and white and quiet. No yelling, no accusations, no cold shoulders unless I wanted them. I looked back at the pan, drizzled in golden butter. Back to the warmth I built. Back to the life that was mine now. Then I placed my phone, face down, and finished making dinner. Because some meals are meant to be savored, even if you're the only one at the table. Thanksgiving morning arrived, dressed in silence. No laughter from downstairs neighbors. No footsteps in the hallway. Just the soft whisper of wind brushing against the building, and the thick hush of snow blanketing the world in detachment. I rose early, not because I had anywhere to be, but because peace has a rhythm, and I didn't want to miss a beat. Toast, peanut butter, a perfectly peeled clementine. I didn't bother with turkey or stuffing or any of the trappings that used to define the day. I had no appetite for nostalgia. At 10:07 a.m., the doorbell rang. Sharp, urgent, expected. I didn't even check the peephole. I knew it was him. Richard Caldwell stood there, bundled in an oversized coat, the kind he used to mock as ridiculous when Mom wore it. His beard was scruffier than I remembered. The lines on his face, deeper, harsher. His hands were buried in his coat pockets, but his posture was familiar, the stance of a man who thought showing up was enough. Ethan, he said, breath turning to mist. We need to talk. I leaned on the door frame, leaving the door cracked just wide enough for the warmth from inside to brush against his chilled face. I don't think today's the right day, I replied evenly. You cut the heat, he snapped. No, I corrected. I just stopped paying. There's a difference, he flinched. Barely. But I saw it. You know we're not good with this tech stuff. The account was under your name. The company didn't even notify us. I handled everything for 2 winters, Dad, I said. Every bill, every midnight oil delivery, every emergency repair. And with one phone call, you decided I didn't belong at dinner. I watched his eyes flicker, recognition, guilt, maybe even regret. But I wasn't here for apologies that only came after consequences. Look, he said, trying to steady his voice. Kyle's locked himself in his room. Diane has a fever. The thermostat says 38 degrees. We've sold everything valuable, even Grandpa's watches. There's nothing left. We can't afford the upfront for the heating service. My throat caught at that. Grandpa's watches. He used to keep them in a glass case in the living room. He'd polish them every Sunday. They were the only things he ever left behind for us. For me, supposedly. I was the one who learned to wind them before I knew how to write my name. Now they were gone, turned into temporary warmth for a family that had made me optional. I did what you asked, I said quietly. I stayed away. For Kyle's peace. So now, you handle the rest. Ethan, he murmured, stepping forward. Don't make this more than it is. It's been a tough year. Kyle's been under a lot of pressure. I raised an eyebrow. Kyle's been under pressure because he keeps jumping into things he doesn't understand. I've been under pressure because I've been holding everything up without permission. He swallowed hard. I know, he whispered. We messed up, but we're still your family. Family, I echoed flatly. You remember that now? He shifted his weight. We need you. The words didn't land the way he thought they would. For years, I ached to hear them. Not for ego, but for recognition. For worth. But now, they just sounded like a request for free labor. I pushed the door open just a little more. He glanced inside. My apartment was small. A 3rd-floor walk-up with a heater that moaned in the mornings and windows that frosted from the inside. But it was warm. It was mine. There was no shouting, no walking on eggshells, no hierarchy. Just me. Alive. Safe. Still, this isn't punishment, Dad, I said, voice even. This is me, finally letting you feel what it's like when the person you ignore stops standing between you and the consequences. He stared at me. I wondered if he was remembering every dollar I wired, every call I answered, every silence I swallowed. I hoped he was. I'm not the emergency fund anymore, I said. I'm not the default heater or the buffer between Kyle's impulsiveness and your reality. He opened his mouth. I closed the door. Clean. Firm. Click. The knock didn't come again. Instead, I stood there, hand still on the knob, breathing in the quiet. No part of me trembled. No part of me doubted. I poured another cup of coffee and returned to the sofa. The air was scented with clove and toasted bread. A jazz record hummed low from the speaker. I wrapped the throw blanket tighter around my shoulders. Outside, snow kept falling. Inside, I was finally warm. Not because someone gave it to me, but because I built it, protected it, chose it. That afternoon, Jordan called. My cousin, the only one who hadn't picked sides, who never once said you should forgive them. Their family. I just talked to Aunt Rose, he said. Things are worse than I thought. Kyle's been couch surfing around Eden Prairie. His latest podcast project fell through. Again. I didn't respond. And your parents, he continued. They're staying in a motel off I-55. Diane's got mild pneumonia. The place doesn't even have proper insulation. They're wearing winter coats to sleep. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear. Not out of pity, out of confirmation. They were finally feeling the freeze I'd shouldered for years. Jordan's voice softened. Are you okay? I'm steady, I said. Sad, a little, but steady. That night, I lit the small candle I kept on the windowsill. Not one of Kyle's failed batches. This one was local, crafted by hand, bought with intention. As the flame flickered and cast gold across my worn-out walls, I watched the city blur into cold silence beyond the glass. And for the first time in years, I didn't want to go back, because back was never a place I truly belonged. December arrived without ceremony. No calls, no guilt-laced texts, no Merry Christmas forwards or attempts at holiday redemption. Just snow, thick, unhurried, burying sidewalks and softening the noise of the city. I liked it that way. I didn't need the noise anymore. My routine settled into something sacred. Wake before sunrise. Brewed dark roast coffee in the little kitchen I once loathed for being too narrow. Read by the window, curled in a thrifted sweater. Work my shift at the distribution center. Come home with frozen hands, and light the lamp that bathed my apartment in soft gold. Somewhere, on a cheap motel mattress off I-55, my mother was still coughing. Somewhere, Kyle was asking internet strangers how to heal from family betrayal. I didn't look at their posts. I didn't unblock them. I didn't feed the fire they started when they called me selfish for finally saying no. Instead, I tended to my own. Jordan called often, giving me updates like little postcards from a world I used to belong to. Kyle's podcast channel is dead. He sold his camera to pay rent for a friend's basement. Richard tried to apply for emergency heating relief. Got denied. No paperwork. Diane, well, she's quiet. Says she's rethinking everything. Says she didn't realize you were carrying so much. I never asked for those updates, but I never told him to stop either. He was the only thread that didn't fray, the only voice that never changed its tone based on convenience. I still don't get why they did it, he said once. You gave them everything, and they treated you like a spare part. I shrugged. Because I made it easy, I replied. Because I never asked them to see me. Late December brought something I didn't expect. A knock on the door. I almost ignored it, assuming it was another package from my neighbor. But something told me to check. I peeked through the peephole. It was her, Diane, bundled in a coat far too big for her, scarf wrapped tight, cheeks wind-burned and hollow. She looked small, not weak, but reduced. Like someone trying to unlearn a life they were raised in. I cracked the door. "Ethan," she said, voice trembling. From the cold or the weight of everything unspoken, I wasn't sure. "I'm sorry for coming without warning," she continued. "But I didn't know how much longer I could wait." I didn't say anything. I just leaned slightly on the frame, letting the warmth seep out into the space between us. "I've been thinking about Thanksgiving," she said softly. "And the winters before that, the ones you got us through, the ones we never said thank you for. And I realized I let you carry it all. I let you disappear in plain sight." I swallowed hard but stayed silent. "I don't expect you to forgive us," she added, "but I needed you to know. I see it now. I see you now." I looked at her, really looked. Gone was the polished mom who always smoothed conflict with silence. This woman was unkempt, unguarded, and maybe for the first time, honest. "Mandy," I said. "Sorry. Kyle always had a safety net. You made sure of that." She nodded, eyes glistening. "I thought I was keeping him safe," she whispered. "But really, I was just letting him drown slower." I opened the door a little wider. Not to let her in, but to let her see. The books stacked neatly, the heater humming softly, the smell of stew simmering on the stove, the quiet, intentional life I built from the scraps they left me. "I'm not angry," I said, voice level, "but I'm not available either. Not for bailing out, not for patching holes, not for pretending." She nodded again, tears now falling without resistance. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry," she said, "whether or not you ever call again." I gave her a small, tired smile. "You matter to me," she added. I didn't respond. We stood like that, just long enough for the cold to be acknowledged, not invited. Then she turned and walked away, boots crunching through the snow, her figure shrinking into the white hush of the city. I closed the door. This time, there was no click of finality, just silence. In the days that followed, I heard nothing. No angry voicemails, no guilt-tripping group messages, just winter and peace. I bought a new throw blanket with my Christmas bonus. I learned how to make lentil soup from scratch. I started writing, not for anyone else, just for me. Stories, thoughts, memories that didn't hurt anymore. Jordan and I spent New Year's Eve on a video call, laughing about Kyle's old eco startup that burned through $3,000 in a week. "You've really changed, man," he said, "but in the best way." "Not changed," I replied. "I just stopped bending. Some nights I still dream of the old house, the yellow kitchen tile, the rickety stair rail, the thermostat with the tape over the broken button. In the dreams, I'm there, but only as a shadow. I never speak. I never stay. I just watch, then leave, and I always close the door behind me. People say you can't choose your family, but you can choose which version of yourself you stop sacrificing to keep them comfortable. This winter, I chose peace. This winter, I chose me. And for the first time since I was a kid, standing at that frosted bus stop with a 20 in my glove and a bill in my back pocket, I didn't feel cold at all. Story 2. You'd think after 6 years of covering someone's rent, car insurance, and groceries, dropping your kid off for one night of babysitting wouldn't be a big deal. But apparently, I was wrong. It started on a Thursday evening. I was late for a big client pitch at work, possibly career-changing, and I was scrambling to get everything packed for my daughter, Ava. She's 2, sassy, and absolutely obsessed with a ratty old purple elephant that had to come with her everywhere, so I shoved it in her bag like it was sacred cargo. My husband Jordan was waiting by the door, diaper bag over one shoulder and car keys in hand. He tapped his watch. "Babe, we gotta go," I mouthed. 1 second as I held the phone to my ear. "Mom, thank you so much again. This presentation could really move things for me." Her voice came through the speaker, syrupy as always. "Of course, Julia. Family first, right?" Something in her tone gave me pause. I should have listened to my gut, but I brushed it off. My parents always helped when it really counted, or so I believed. We got to their place just as the sun was dipping low, casting that golden glow that makes everything feel softer than it is. Ava was dozing off in her car seat. As Jordan grabbed her bag, I scooped her up, her little head resting against my shoulder. My mom opened the door. Her expression tightened the second she saw Ava's overnight duffel. "What's this?" she asked, voice sharp like I'd just dropped a bomb, not a diaper bag. "Ava's things?" I said, confused. "My big pitch, remember?" "Aye." She cut me off, arms crossing. "We're not babysitters, Julia. We raised our kids. I swear." I stopped breathing for a second. Jordan froze beside me. I looked past her into the house. Laughter echoed from the living room. That's when I saw that my sister, Natalie, kicked back on the couch, scrolling her phone while her twin boys ran circles around our dad, who was trying to build a block tower. You know, the same dad who hadn't answered my texts in 2 weeks. I stood there holding Ava, stunned. "Well, what's going on?" "Oh," Mom said, like it was obvious. "Natalie has a migraine. We're watching the boys." I didn't speak, not right away. My thoughts were too loud. I'd been sending them $850 a month since I was 23. Covered car repairs, medical bills, even bailed Natalie out of a payday loan once. They needed just a little help while Dad's business was struggling, and I gave it, over and over. Now, apparently, they were good enough to play with my nephews, but not to watch their own granddaughter for one night. When I finally found my voice, it came out cold and clear. "I get it now. I was never your daughter, just your bank account." My mom's face turned red. "Julia, don't be dramatic. This has nothing to do with money." But it had everything to do with money. Without another word, Jordan took Ava's bag. I cradled her closer and walked away. The drive home was silent. Not angry silent, grieving silent. I kept thinking, they made their choice. Now I'll make mine. That night, after Ava went to bed, I pulled out my laptop. I opened our joint finances. Every automatic transfer to their accounts. Every Venmo. Every bill paid on their behalf. It totaled over $62,000. "You sure?" Jordan asked quietly, watching me hover over the cancel button. I nodded. Click. Rent? Gone. Insurance? Gone. Cell phones, utilities, streaming services, all cut. Then I drafted a text. "From now on, handle your own expenses. I won't be funding this anymore." Sent it to Mom, Dad, and Natalie. Blocked them right after. I don't know what felt heavier, the heartbreak or the weight that finally lifted. The next morning, chaos. Voicemails, unknown numbers, emails from old addresses they hadn't used in years. "Julia, the rent didn't process. The landlord's threatening to evict us. Call me now. You can't just abandon your family." "So this is about Natalie's kids? You're punishing us because you're jealous she's the favorite?" It was like they'd rehearsed this guilt trip. Jordan handed me a coffee. "You okay?" I looked at him. "I think I'm finally getting there." But they didn't stop. Of course not. That afternoon, my mom posted a carefully crafted message on Facebook, devastated. "Our daughter, who has more than enough, has cut us off without warning. Please pray for our family." And the comments? Pure emotional manipulation candy. Kids today don't appreciate sacrifice. Money changes people. Natalie chimed in. "She's always been selfish." Cue the rage. But I didn't reply. I posted screenshots, bank transfers, birthday invites I wasn't included in, photos of Ava's first steps, which they skipped to take a cruise with Natalie. The truth spread like wildfire. My mom's friend Deborah commented, "I had no idea you supported them for so long." Another wrote, "She told us you refused to help." Guess that wasn't true. Even Natalie's own friends started unfollowing her. I exhaled. For once, people were seeing me. Then the manipulation leveled up. They showed up at my office, Mom crying in the lobby, Dad demanding to see me. Security escorted them out. Natalie texted from another burner number. You're mentally unstable. This is postpartum rage. I laughed. That night, I booked Ava into a daycare we used to think was too expensive. The one with music classes and Spanish immersion. I could afford it now. Jordan suggested we take a long weekend in the mountains. Just us. I almost said no. Then I stopped myself. Let's do it, I said. No guilt. No shame. Just the quiet start of a new life one, where I stopped setting myself on fire to keep others warm. We didn't post vacation photos. Not a single one. Not because we were hiding, but because for once, we were just living. The cabin in the mountains was small, tucked into the trees with a fireplace that clicked and hissed when it got going. Ava discovered pine cones and chased her shadow. Jordan made pancakes every morning. I didn't think about money once. Back home, I changed my number. I had to. After the office ambush, the fake wellness checks, the passive-aggressive emails from my mom's church group, it was too much. But cutting ties didn't mean I stopped feeling. I'd wake up some nights, heart pounding, because I dreamed they were at the door again, or that Ava had asked, "Where's Grandma?" And I didn't know how to explain a lifetime of hurt to a toddler. Therapy helped. Dr. Lena didn't hand out forgiveness like candy. She helped me sit with the guilt, then separate it from truth. You're not responsible for their survival, she said. They're responsible for the harm they caused. It hit me. My love had always been transactional to them, useful when it came with direct deposit, worthless when it didn't. Still, I expected the silence to last maybe a week, 2, tops. Instead, 3 months passed. I didn't hear a word. Then one day, I saw my parents' couch listed on Facebook Marketplace, the one I unknowingly paid for, listed for $1,500 lightly used Italian leather. A week later, their dining set popped up. Then my dad's golf clubs. My mom's tennis partner ran into me at the store and looked like she'd seen a ghost. Your folks are looking for jobs, she mumbled, grabbing a bag of frozen peas like it was a lifeline. They should have been doing that 10 years ago, I said, voice steady. It wasn't cruel, it was honest. Back at home, Ava was finger painting a storm on the kitchen table. Jordan pulled up her new daycare report, loves music class, helps friends clean up, strong leadership skills. I stared at those words, heart swelling. She's thriving. Jordan grinned. So are you. I wanted to believe him. Some days I almost did. Then came the envelope. No return address, just my name, in my mom's handwriting neat, a little shakier than I remembered. I didn't open it right away. It sat on the counter for 2 days. Jordan didn't push. He just said, "Your call." When I finally slid it open, my stomach clenched. I expected guilt, blame, a veiled plea for money. Instead, I found 6 lines. I kept taking until there was nothing left, and I was angry when you finally stopped. You didn't deserve that. I'm sorry. I miss you. Love, Mom. No demands, no strings. Still, I didn't answer. Not right away. I took it to therapy first. People can change, Dr. Lena said. But words aren't change. Behavior is. So I set a boundary. A firm one. I texted from a new number. We can meet. Neutral location. 30 minutes. No expectations. We met at a coffee shop near a park public. Neutral. Safe. She looked older. Smaller. Wore a plain coat, no makeup. The designer bag was gone. The fake smile, too. "Hi," she said, voice thin. "Sit," I said. Not warm. Not cold. Just steady. She didn't try to hug me. That meant something. I got straight to it. "If this is about money, walk out now." "It's not," she said. "I know better." The silence between us wasn't hostile, just hollow, like we were both waiting to see who we really were without the transactions. "I hurt you," she said, hands curled around her tea. "And I hurt Ava." "I know that." I watched her carefully. "Why now?" She stared into her cup. because I lost everything I thought I needed and still had to face myself. I didn't cry. I didn't get angry. I just asked the only question that mattered. Did you ever love me? Or just what I gave you? She flinched. Tears welled up. I loved you, she whispered. But I used you, and I think I confused the two. She offered no excuses, just sat with her guilt. For the first time in my life, she didn't deflect. We talked for 22 minutes. I watched the clock. She followed every rule: no money talk, no blaming Natalie, no guilt tripping. As we stood to leave, she reached for her coat and paused. Would you ever let me see Ava again? Maybe, I said, but it'll be on my terms, slowly, supervised, and only if it's healthy for her and for me. She nodded. No begging, no bargaining, just a quiet "I'd like that." If it happens. I walked away first. Back home, I tucked Ava into bed and joined Jordan on the couch. He was holding an old photo me, college graduation, mom and dad on either side. Do you want to keep this? He asked. I looked at it for a long second, then nodded. Yeah, but not on display. He smiled, slid it into the back of the drawer. Safe, but not center stage. That night, I slept straight through. Not because everything was fixed, but because, for the first time, I knew I didn't owe anyone my peace. A few weeks after that coffee meeting, I got a message from my mom. Just one line: found a book Ava might like. Same time Saturday? Simple. No drama. No guilt. I stared at it for a long while, then replied, Roger will bring her. 1 hour. No money talk. No criticism. Follow the rules if you want this to work. She responded with a thumbs up. It wasn't warm, it wasn't healing, but it was respect, and that finally was enough. Saturday came. Ava wore her purple jacket with the tiny suns on the sleeves and clutched her latest obsession, a plush stingray. Gamma has books, she beamed. Roger nodded, loading her into the car. I got it, he said. You rest. Resting still felt weird, like I should be doing something, fixing something. Instead, I brewed tea, sat on the porch, and let silence stretch out without checking my phone every 10 minutes. Birds hopped around the fence. Someone down the street was mowing grass. Wind chimes sang in the distance. No one was yelling. No one was asking for money. Just peace. When Roger brought Ava home, she ran straight to me with a drawing crayon scribbles of a tree, a swing, a figure that might have been me or her, depending on the angle. She was good, Roger said. Your mom didn't overstep. She learning? She's trying. I nodded. We didn't need to dissect it. I'd already made my peace with the truth. Some people grow roots late, and others don't grow at all. The next day, I opened a college savings account in AVA's name. The first deposit? $800. The amount that used to disappear from my account every month without a thank you. Now, it was planting something that might actually bloom. Work, too, felt different, lighter. I wasn't stretching my lunch break to call banks or pay overdue bills for my parents. I wasn't panicking at every unknown number. I was present. That presence showed. I got promoted again, senior director. It came with a bigger team, better hours, a raise that made things like ballet lessons or family trips actually feel doable. Ava asked me one evening while brushing her teeth, Mama, why don't we see Aunt Nat? I rinsed her toothbrush, paused, then said gently, because sometimes people need time to learn how to be kind. She nodded. Oh, maybe she needs a big feelings book. I smiled. Maybe. Natalie still hadn't reached out, and that was okay. Some wounds don't come with apologies. Some bridges are better left ash. My mom, though, kept trying. No big declarations, just slow steps. She sent Ava voice notes reading bedtime stories, asked before dropping by, took a job at the local community college admin work, decent pay, honest hours. She started therapy, sent me her counselor's name and session dates. And for the first time ever, she didn't ask me to fix her. She just showed up. Ava called her Gamma again. They read together on the porch some Sundays. I watched from the kitchen sometimes. Never let myself forget the history, but allowed space for what was trying to grow. One day I got a handwritten note. Thank you for the second chance. Not for the relationship, but for the accountability. That's what I never gave you before. I kept it, didn't hang it on the fridge, but tucked it behind a photo in my desk drawer. Not a badge of pride, just proof that even broken things can shift. Not always repair, but shift. Ava and I planted tomatoes that spring. Basil, too. She said she wanted to grow a pizza garden. We laughed, dug into the dirt, and watched the sky shift pink as the sun went down. That night, after she was asleep, I looked around the house, our house, and saw how much had changed. Photos lined the hallway. Not staged, not forced, just real. Roger and Ava on the beach, me in the kitchen, flower on my shirt. Ava in her swing, hair wild, eyes joyful. I hadn't realized it before, but every frame on that wall told the same story. We built this life ourselves. No handouts, no strings, no applause needed. Just love, steady, quiet, real. I got another letter that month, this one from my dad. Handwritten, stiff like his voice always was. I don't agree with what you did. I think it was cruel, but I hope you're okay. I read it once, folded it back up, didn't reply. He wasn't asking for reconciliation, just throwing his version of closure into the wind. And that's the thing about closure sometimes. It comes when you stop waiting for someone else to hand it to you. Sometimes you write your own. The following weekend, I spoke at a local women's circle. The topic? Financial boundaries with family. The room was full women with tired eyes and tight smiles. One said, I didn't even know what to call it until now. Another whispered, I thought I was the only one. I left the building with tears in my throat. Not grief, not regret, recognition. This story wasn't just mine. And sharing it? That was healing too. A few days later, Ava brought home a sticker from daycare that said helper. She grinned, showing it off. I helped Maya when she dropped her crayons, she said proudly. You're a good helper, I told her. But you know what else is important? What? Taking care of yourself too. She nodded seriously, like I'd just handed her an ancient truth. I smiled. Because I had. Epilogue. Sometimes Ava still asks, can Gamma come this week? Sometimes she forgets the times when Gamma didn't show up. And that's okay. Her childhood should be safe, not shadowed by what came before. My mom keeps following the rules. Therapy. No oversteps. No entitlement. She asks before planning. Sends receipts without being asked. And never, ever mentions money. It's not perfect, but it's honest. And that's more than I ever thought I'd get. As for the rest of the family, Natalie's still silent. Dad's still bitter. But I sleep fine, because my story isn't about whether they ever change. It's about the fact that I did. I stopped being their safety net. I stopped asking to be seen. I stepped into my own life fully, finally. And I didn't look back. Story 3. It happened over dinner, Christmas dinner, of all nights. You know, the kind of evening that's supposed to feel warm and nostalgic, where family bickers over card games and overcooked stuffing. Not this time. This time, I was handed my eviction notice between bites of turkey. Myra, my mom said, pausing mid-chew, I think it's time you moved out. I froze, fork midair, gravy dripping back onto my plate. I blinked. What? My name's Myra. I'm 26, and I've been the financial lifeline of my family since I turned 19. Rent, groceries, electric bill, Wi-Fi. Even my little brother's extracurriculars, I handled it. Not because I had to. At first I wanted to. That's what family does, right? You help out when things get tough. You fill in the gaps. But this wasn't help anymore. It was a one-woman operation, and I was the unpaid CEO of a very entitled board of directors. I didn't say anything that night. I just stood up, dropped my napkin on my half-eaten plate, and walked away. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I kept hearing my mom's voice, so casual, like she was suggesting I get a haircut. My dad hadn't said a word during the announcement. My brother, Jason, 28, jobless, permanently parked in front of his PlayStation, snorted and said something about finally cutting the cord. And my younger brother, Luke, just kept scrolling on his phone like this wasn't his business. Maybe it wasn't. But the moment that broke me, my mom's face when I left the table, she looked relieved. The next morning, I didn't hesitate. I packed, tossed everything I owned into 2 duffel bags and a backpack. Clothes, laptop, chargers, birth certificate, bank statements, anything they couldn't use to guilt me later. I was stuffing socks into a side pocket when Luke hovered at the door. "You're seriously going? Isn't that what she said?" I didn't look at him. She didn't mean it like that. No. I zipped the bag slowly. How else could she have meant get out? He didn't answer. Just stood there like a kid trying to pretend his sister wasn't abandoning ship. And yeah, it sucked. Luke was the only one I felt bad leaving. But he wasn't enough of a reason to stay in a house where I was both the bank and the scapegoat. I walked down the stairs ready to leave without saying another word. But of course, they didn't make it that easy. My mom was in the kitchen when I reached the door. She raised an eyebrow when she saw the bags. "You're actually leaving now?" "You told me to," I said. She blinked, clearly not expecting that response. "I figured you'd take time to find a place." "I have options," I lied. I had nothing solid lined up, just a couple of friends who said I could crash if needed. But that was none of her business anymore. Then my dad shuffled in, scratching his stomach like he just woke from a nap. "Really, Myra, you're gonna throw everything away over one conversation? You mean the one where you all decided I was a burden?" I reached for the doorknob. That's when it happened. "Before you go," my mom said, "can we talk about the bills?" I paused, slowly turned. She said it like she was asking for a recipe. "We're still going to need your help, at least for a bit, just until we catch up on things." I stared at her. One honestly thought I misheard. "You're asking me for money after kicking me out?" "It's not like that," she said. "We've been relying on you for years. We just—" "No," I interrupted. My dad scoffed. "Don't be dramatic. We raised you, and I paid you back every month for the last 7 years. I snapped. "This conversation is over." And I meant it. I spent that night on a futon in my friend Nadia's apartment. She didn't ask for details, just handed me a key, a blanket, and a beer. "You want to talk? I'm here. If not, TV's got 6 streaming apps. God bless Nadia." The next few days were a blur of Craigslist apartment listings, budgeting apps, and quietly coming to terms with the fact that I didn't have to carry anyone anymore. I wasn't financially free yet, but for the first time in years, the money I made was mine. 1 week later, I signed the lease for a tiny 1-bedroom with creaky floors and an aggressively orange fridge. But it was mine. No more surprise water bills, no more being the family ATM, no more being told I was too old to be living at home while still footing the rent. I started sleeping better, waking up without knots in my stomach. Hell, I bought a plant, named her Sasha. She's still alive. That's something, right? Back home, I heard things weren't great. Nadia's sister still talked to my mom and shared updates I didn't ask for. Apparently, they were shocked I didn't send money the first month. Genuinely confused. They hadn't even thought through the fact that asking me to leave meant losing their funding. My mom picked up extra shifts. My dad sold off some old collectibles. Jason finally got a part-time job at a vape shop and complained about minimum wage. Meanwhile, I bought a couch. Secondhand, but comfortable. I celebrated by eating takeout on it in pajamas I didn't have to justify buying. It was peaceful. It was quiet. It was everything their house never was. Until my phone rang. The call came late on a Thursday. I had just gotten back from work, kicked off my boots, and was halfway through microwaving leftover stir-fry when my phone lit up. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something in me, it was probably curiosity, made me swipe. "Hello?" A second of silence. Then a voice I hadn't heard in a month. Myra, it's Mom. I stood still, the microwave humming behind me. What do you want? She went straight into the voice. You know, the one soft, motherly. Like she was worried about me. Like I hadn't just been cut off from the family like expired milk. We haven't heard from you. I just wanted to check in. How are you? How's your new place? I leaned against the counter. I'm fine. Why are you really calling? A long pause. She exhaled like it physically pained her to say the next part. Well, we've been struggling. Your dad's hours were cut again. I'm picking up every shift I can. Jason's trying. That made me laugh. I didn't mean to. It just came out. Jason's trying? That's your pitch? She didn't like that. Her tone shifted, tighter. We're just asking for a little help. You don't have to come back or anything. Just, maybe you could cover the electricity this month? It wouldn't be much. I closed my eyes. You kicked me out. We asked you to move out. You pushed me out the door with my own money still in your fridge. Myra, don't be like this. Like what? I said, voice low now. Like someone who finally realized they were being used? She got quiet. Then the line went dead. No goodbye, just silence. And honestly, that silence felt better than any apology she could have faked. The next week passed without incident. I got back into my rhythm work, grocery runs, meal prepping, Netflix nights. I even started a savings account. For the first time in years, I had a number that was mine. But peace never lasts when you have family like mine. It was a Saturday morning. I was sweeping the apartment when I noticed a shadow outside my door. I peeked through the peephole. My parents, both of them, standing there like they had every right to show up unannounced. I didn't open the door right away. I stood there, heart thudding, asking myself if I even owed them a response. Then I cracked it open just enough to speak. What are you doing here? My dad stepped forward, his tone already annoyed. We need to talk. Talk about what? You already said everything you needed to. We were angry, my mom said. But this is getting out of hand. You've made your point. I opened the door a little wider. What point is that? That you're mad? That you're upset? Fine. But we need to move forward now. We're a family, Myra. Oh, now we're a family? I said. When you needed rent paid, I was just alive and wallet. But now you miss the family part? Her eyes narrowed. You don't have to be cruel. I looked at her for a long second, then stepped aside, motioning toward the apartment. You want to see what my life looks like without you? Go ahead. They walked in like they still had claim to me. My dad looked around like he was inspecting a rental. Small. It's paid for. He didn't respond. My mom wandered into the tiny kitchen, stared at my thrifted dish rack like it was evidence in a crime scene. You live like this now? Yeah, on my own terms. They didn't sit. They didn't smile. They were here for one thing. We need help, my dad finally said. And I need boundaries, I replied. It's not fair, he muttered. We gave you everything growing up. I laughed, dry and sharp. No, you gave me guilt. I gave you groceries. My mom stepped closer. You're punishing us. I'm protecting myself, I said. There's a difference. That's when he snapped. You owe us, Myra. We housed you, fed you, and this is how you repay us? I looked him dead in the eye. You housed me while I paid for the house. You fed me food I bought. You kept me around because I was useful. And the moment I asked for space, you pushed me out like I was some ungrateful squatter. I felt the fire rise in my chest, but I kept my voice level. I don't owe you. Not anymore. They didn't know what to say, so I said it for them. I'm not sending money. I'm not coming back. And I'm not your backup plan. Then I pointed to the door. Leave. They stood frozen. My mom looked like she might cry. My dad looked like he wanted to yell, but neither of them moved until I opened the door wide. Slowly they shuffled out. As they passed me, my mom whispered, "You'll regret this." I smiled. No, I won't. Then I closed the door and locked it. That night, I sat on the floor eating cereal out of a mug. Sasha the plant by the window. my feet tucked into a blanket, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Stillness. Freedom. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't easy, but it was mine, and I wasn't giving it up. It's strange how quiet life gets after you stop answering the phone. The weeks after they showed up at my door were still. Not peaceful, not exactly, just still. Like the dust that settles after a storm when the air is heavy, but the winds finally stopped pushing. I didn't hear from them right away. No texts, no calls, no late-night emails with guilt in the subject line. Just silence. But silence, when it comes from people who only spoke to take, doesn't feel like loss. It feels like space, like room to breathe, and I needed that more than I realized. I started walking every morning, early, before work, while the sky still wore its gray pajamas. I'd walk past the little bakery 2 blocks over, where the smell of fresh bread always gave me hope for no reason. I'd think about how long it had been since I felt okay waking up, since I felt like the day belonged to me. Then, just when I was starting to believe they were really gone, Jason showed up. I came home late one night after work. My feet hurt, my shoulders ached, and I was craving a shower and silence. But as soon as I hit the hallway, I saw him, sitting on the floor outside my apartment door, hoodie up, eyes on his phone, like he'd just dropped in from another planet, where empathy still hadn't been invented. He stood when he saw me. "Myra." I unlocked the door without answering. "Can we talk?" "No." I stepped inside, but he followed. "Please," he said. I turned to face him, holding the door open just enough for him to know he wasn't welcome inside. "What do you want?" He looked at his shoes. "Mom and Dad, they're not doing great." I waited. He wasn't done. "They're fighting a lot. Bills are piling up. Mom's working night shifts again. Dad's trying to sell stuff, but no one's buying. And they're saying it's your fault." That made me blink. I actually laughed a little. "My fault?" "Yeah," he shrugged. "They think if you hadn't just abandoned us, things would have worked out." "That's funny," I said, "because when I was paying for everything, no one said thank you. But now that I'm gone, it's my fault things are falling apart." He didn't argue, just shifted awkwardly. "Look," he said, "I'm not here to blame you. I just thought maybe if you came by, just to talk to Mom. She's not doing great. She's doing exactly what she chose," I said. Then I softened a little, because Jason wasn't innocent, but he wasn't my enemy either. "I'm sorry they're struggling. I really am. But I'm not the reason. They are. And I'm not going back, Jay. That part of my life is over." He looked up at me, eyes tired. "You really mean that?" "I do." And he nodded. "All right, I just figured I'd try." Then he walked away, hands in his hoodie pocket, shoulders hunched, like he was smaller than I remembered. I didn't feel good about it, but I didn't feel bad either. That was the weirdest part of all this. About a month later, I got a letter in the mail. Yeah, a literal handwritten letter. No return address, but I knew that handwriting. It was from my mom. The envelope was soft from handling, like she'd folded it and unfolded it 100 times before mailing it. Inside, a single page, blue ink, slanted cursive. "Myra, I don't know how to fix this. I don't even know if I should try. Maybe it's too late. Maybe we broke something we can't rebuild. I just wanted to say I miss you. Not the money, not the help. You. I'm sorry for the way we treated you, for making you feel small in a place that should have made you feel safe. You didn't deserve that. If you ever want to come home even just to visit, you can. Love, Mom." I read it twice, then again. Then I set it down on the table, and I sat there, just staring at it, because part of me wanted to forgive, to believe those words were honest, that she got it now. But a bigger part of me knew something else. That letter wasn't an apology. It was a memory of who she used to be, or who I wanted her to be, and I couldn't build my life on that. These days, I don't think about them as much. I still get the updates through Nadia, through random messages from old neighbors. Apparently they had to downsize. Jason moved in with a friend. Dad tried Uber for a bit, Mom's health took a dip from the stress, but I don't answer. I don't send money. I don't visit. Not because I'm bitter, because I'm done. I built a new life. One where no one gets to decide my worth based on what I can pay for. Where I can breathe without waiting for the next favor someone will pretend is a right. I still walk every morning. Still pass that same bakery. Sometimes I even buy the bread now. And when I sit at my window, watching the world move, I don't feel the weight anymore. No guilt, no anger, just quiet, just me. And that's enough.